WWE doesn't really fit into a genre. If you go through some of the gimmicks Vince McMahon has brought us over the years, you'll find plumbers, mascots, zombies, dead people, aliens, hog farmers, posh dudes, and so much more. It means sometimes stories are very much based in reality, whereas others it's all hocus pocus and magic. It's that variety though which likely makes this madness so damn entertaining. What else is like it? Due to this, however, some creations have some pretty terrifying backstories that made its way all the way to your television screen. Vinnie Mac always says that WWE makes movies, and I suppose based on this, that's true. If something makes for a good idea, we'll move forward regardless. I'm Simon from What Culture. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. This is 10 disturbing backstories behind WWE gimmicks. Number 10, Doink. He's just a clown, right, and you don't need to be scared of Bobo. However, actually, there's more to Doink than meets the eye, to the point it's not too dissimilar to Batman's The Joker. A character whose origins are purposely held back from the audience, it's the mystery that makes it so disturbing. A backstory would have actually lessened the creepiness. Portrayed by Matt Bourne when it debuted in 1992, the idea was far more sinister than it would become. Designed to play on people's irrational fears of clowns, Doink started by playing pranks on wrestlers like dumping water on Marty Jannetty. I suppose you could say it was annoying, but kinda cute. These soon started to develop though, as it was revealed Doink had evil in his heart. Aside from getting this across in promos when he switched on a dime, in the ring the clown would kick the crap out of his opponents before instantly going back to his silly ways when the bell rang. The switch between stupid and serious was a methodical choice, right down to Doink once saying right into the camera that I am no more than an instrument of nature, a product of my environment. It's not how clowns talk, just meant to squeeze and honk your nose. Complete with the concept that behind the makeup was a very screwed up individual, it's a real shame that Bourne was fired from WWE with other people taking up the gambit and treating this like it was something that turned up to a party and made balloon animals. The original was much better. Number 9, The Fiend. Not too dissimilar to Doink when you think about it. The difference with Bray Wyatt is that he was able to evolve his character to the point he got to the main event. After almost a year away from the ring, Wyatt returned with one of the most compelling personas we'd seen in ages. He confused you at first with his Mr. Rogers-like kids show, only to reveal the exact opposite of that with the serial killer-looking Fiend. You're also posed with questions like if this was all existing in Bray's own head, and by the time you saw that entrance with a severed head lantern, all was well, for the wrong reasons. It soon became apparent that this change had occurred because of Wyatt's pain and suffering, which is why he wreaks havoc on those who have screwed him over in the past. So he went after Kane, Daniel Bryan, John Cena. They had ruined him before, so now he would get his revenge. He also has a bunch of puppets that take a look back at his old gimmicks, and despite some questionable booking match-wise, this thing is ridiculously well done. Has more depth than a swimming pool. Number 8, The Undertaker. The Undertaker is probably the best character ever in pro wrestling. I mean, who you gonna say is better? Repo Man? Obviously, but he transcends all this, so we can put him to one side. But since his debut at the 1990 Survivor Series, Taker has been portrayed as a supernatural zombie dead guy who, because he is deceased already, can then be killed over and over again, and also come back over and over again. All of it started at the 1994 Royal Rumble. I would like to know what the backstory is too. I mean, we kind of know, but initially he appeared as just some eerie ghost who stood side by side with a man called Paul Bearer. He won the WWF title quite early on from Hulk Hogan, buried the Ultimate Warrior, and told people he was gonna kill him. Don't forget he said, "Rest in peace." The idea of there being some mystery was half the fun, but in 1997, boy did we get more. After Bearer turned his back on the Phenom at SummerSlam, the payoff was the reveal of Brother Kane, who told us that The Undertaker had killed his parents in a fire. Right, okay, so he's proper flubbed up. Also left his sibling for dead, and yet somehow when we were past all this, he went back to being a good guy. Number 7, Kane. And we may as well continue on because man, Kane may be even more screwed up than his fake brother. Originally orphaned as a child after being burned in these flames, or so it was said, he was soon also the child of Paul Bearer and someone suffering from serious mental scarring, as he thought he was burned, but he wasn't. Caused him to wear a face mask for years, plus he killed his girlfriend when drunk behind the wheel. Then The Undertaker, whilst acknowledging his tragic backstory of being orphaned growing up, then denied he was was the one that started the fire that burned down his family home, even though Paul Bearer was saying he had proof. And of course, that's when Kane did arrive, and there's even more here as well, but come on, this is definitely disturbing. Glenn Jacobs, the man behind this, has often said he thinks the Taker Kane storytelling is up there with the best ever, and while it did go off the rails from time to time, I can't lie, I loved it when I was younger. I was just intrigued and it fascinated me. It got even more dark because he was forced to unmask, which seems unfair, and afterwards, he went a little bit more nuts. Wrestling. Number 6, Festus. Luke Gallows played Festus. I start that way because so many people are shocked to learn this, especially as that guy was an intellectually challenged so-and-so who could barely talk. It was based on a kid Vince McMahon went to school with apparently, who was somewhat slow and yet snapped on a whim. The best story is when Gallows explained that all of this came during his first meeting with McMahon. As expected, he was nervous and excited, and then had to hear the boss explain all this while making the dumbfounded face Festus would soon make himself when he was backstage or in the ring. That doesn't sound great. Amazingly, CM Punk of all people got his hands on it and turned it into something kinda cool. When Festus joined the ranks of the Straight Edge Society, Punk spun his whacked out demeanor as a side effect of his family and friends drugging him. I mean, that is quite the twist. Gallows would then thank Punk for saving him, and these days we just don't talk about it. Just pretend they're different people. Number 5, Mankind. Before Mick Foley arrived in the WWF in 1996, he had been Cactus Jack, a crazy wild man. Then in the mid-90s, he became Mankind and everything changed. A proper disturbing character when he debuted, he was presented as a mentally tortured soul who would scream and squeal both in the ring and during interviews. He'd often yell for his mummy or talk about his pet rat George, and just look at that mask. He looked like flipping Hannibal Lecter. Foley put so much into this too, he admitted that he would be drained after playing the part. If you need evidence, go and watch the sit-down chat he had with Jim Ross in 1997. As well as expanding on the persona where he admitted that he enjoyed pain, Mankind also blamed society for his woes and for his unacceptance. This is so good it holds up today, and is also the segment which convinced Vincent Kennedy McMahon that there was serious money here. He wasn't wrong. It really is an evil, twisted creation. Number 4, Deacon Batista. You remember Batista, a multi-time world champion, headlined WrestleMania twice, and began life on the main roster as Devon Dudley's weird lackey. But after Devon had become a reverend, he introduced us to his protege, a man known as Deacon Batista, and you would not believe what WWE had written down to justify his existence. On Talk Is Jericho, Big Dave would reveal that some early ideas were to have the reason he was so angry all the time be caused by the fact that he was a rape child. I still can't believe it, and I hate that I even have to say it. You'll be unsurprised to hear that Batista wasn't a fan of any of this, as he said many times during interviews. In fact, he called it ridiculous and horrible. He's right. Number 3, CM Punk. Is CM Punk one of the best heels ever? I would say yes. During an appearance on FS1's Backstage in early 2020, Punk even opened up about arguably his best run as a bad guy when he was leading the already mentioned Straight Edge Society. He had proof of this as well, talking about how when WWE toured the southern states, the older people in the audience would take swings at him, hoping to smack him in the face. The great thing about him though is that he can be described as misunderstood. Punk generated heat with his whole "I'm better than you" attitude, but when you listen to what he said, well, his words were pretty genuine. Stories about growing up in a family plagued by alcoholism were true, and it tied right into why he decided to live a straight edge lifestyle. So his reality was very well intertwined with his wrestling. Another highlight of all this was when he was feuding with Jeff Hardy in 2009 and 2010, chastising him for his use of prescription drugs and getting booed out the place for telling it like it was. Takes something pretty special to do that. Number 2, Snitsky. Most people remember Snitsky as a guy who caused Lita to have a miscarriage when she was carrying Kane's baby in 2004. My word, WWE in the mid-2000s. He even had entrance music that started with him saying it wasn't my fault because he didn't think he was at fault even though he was. He also punted a fake child into the crowd. Ugh. When talking about it years later though, Snitsky was all good with it, describing it as cool and different. He was well aware that the storyline would never happen in the modern day, but did reveal that it was meant to be a one and done thing, but apparently got over so much, WWE just kept going with it. I would say getting a crowd to chant "baby killer" was a bad move, but what do I know? If you want to know what the man was doing at least of a few years ago, in 2014 he was selling pressure cookers. He even worked his catchphrase into the advert. Number 1, Dominic Mysterio. This is just amazing, really. If we look at Dominic Mysterio from his time within the WWE, it all begins in 2005 when Rey was feuding with Eddie Guerrero. And what were they fighting over? Custody of Dommy Boy, who was then 8 years old. So let's look at it from his point of view. As a child, his dad was tormented by a former friend, while said friend claimed that he was the real father and of course Dominic's real dad. Social services then got involved to remove him from the family home, and rather than go through the courts, Eddie and Rey duked it out in a ladder match to see who should get ownership of the son. Awesome. Dominic has mentioned how in his younger days all his school friends would ask him who his actual dad was, and within the story, isn't it technically Eddie? It gets even more mad because on his podcast, Bruce Pritchard revealed that it was all based on Guerrero's autobiography, where he admitted he had a child with another woman when he was married to Vicky Guerrero. As that lady was never named, WWE thought they could play off it. Hands up if you feel sorry for Dominic Mysterio. You can't see me, but my hand is up. Know of any other disturbing backstories behind WWE gimmicks? Make sure you let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some articles. Follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name is Simon from What Culture. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll talk to you again soon.